To avoid getting snared in a narcissistic ruse, you have to see them coming. The only way to weaken their game is to starve them out. If you feed them a single emotional crumb, you become the target. Now you're caught up in the subterfuge. But you can't take their attacks personally. The minute you do, it'll be hard to spot their ploys, and they'll continue to thrive on triggering negative emotional reactions that support their narcissistic goals. Staying out of target territory is the priority, because as a target, you'll be viewed as inferior and inadequate. Oh, they'll be nice as long as you reinforce their superiority complex and fragile sense of self-importance. But the minute you see a crack in their grandiose facade, you're chopped meat, my friend. You'll be dominated in every conversation, argument, and situation. Push back on their false sense of power and control, and you're likely fighting a losing battle. They have to win every debate and argument. So if you're the type who has to have the last word, forget about it. You'll also be blamed for their crossed boundaries, disrespect, and unacceptable treatment. A fundamental aspect of narcissism is evading accountability at all costs. Try to confront their wrong and be prepared for circuitous arguments that leave you questioning your own sanity. If you become the target, you can count on being exhausted from becoming the source of their insatiable need for validation. Granted, it sometimes feels pretty good when they compensate by being the indispensable or virtuous knight in shining armor. But that nirvana is unsustainable, and guess who takes the brunt of the backlash when that charade breaks down? 3 guesses and the first 2 don't count. Whether you're in the feel-good stage or the not-so-good stage of a narcissistic relationship, their actions are never about you. It's always about them and sustaining a make-believe shield around their fragile egos. On the narcissistic battlefield, self-preservation is the objective, and anybody in their wake become collateral damage. Better said, they're equal opportunity manipulators, and anybody in close proximity becomes a target. See, by the time you realize what you're dealing with, you're already in a subterfuge. But if you see them coming before they get to you, you dodge the inevitable chaos. But maybe you're not the target. Maybe it's a friend or a family member. Either way, you need to recognize narcissistic PsyOps. What is narcissistic PsyOps? PsyOps is a military term for influencing an enemy's state of mind through psychological manipulation. It's basically, as Lieutenant Colonel Michael Holmes describes it,
my job in PsyOps is to play with people's heads, to get the enemy to behave the way we want them to behave.
Basically, the narcissists combine PsyOps along with their weak narcissistic personality traits to manipulate a target. They twist reality in order to maintain a grandiose self-image and to gain and maintain control of the target. There's no official term called narcissistic PsyOps, but for the purposes of this discussion, I'm using it to describe what goes on in a narcissistic relationship. Narcissistic PsyOps describes the tactics used by a narcissist to manipulate and deceive unsuspecting others. Driven by an insatiable need for power and admiration, the narcissist develops a pattern of exploitation and domination in interpersonal relationships. The purpose is to psychologically manipulate the target by any means necessary. So what are the goals of narcissistic PsyOps? The point is blocking out pain by externalizing self-esteem and self-validation. A self-aware person will take steps to heal from past trauma by acknowledging the original wound processing that from a more objective perspective and moving through the inevitable pain of the healing process. The narcissist is stuck in the muck of denial. They overreact to anything that resembles addressing their core issues. Their egos are frail as eggshells, and constructive criticism or advice are perceived as personal affronts. As a result, they overcompensate by building a false sense of self. You know how we as survivors have to be aware of negative voices from our past? We have to recognize self-destructive thoughts and replace them with truthful vision. A narcissist never hears those past voices because they drown them out with self-aggrandizement and controlling behavior, and they seek to maintain at all costs that nirvana. It's a weak game that crumbles in the face of resistance and objective truth. There are 3 phases of narcissistic psychological operations: strategic, operational, and tactical. The specifics of each differs depending on the setting, but let's look at these from a dating perspective. In the strategic phase, the narcissist identifies the target and finds out about their interests, their values, their beliefs, vulnerabilities, and preferences. Now, this involves calculated long-term manipulation meant to gain control, isolate the target, and protect the narcissist's self-image. They're reading the room, so to speak, so that they know how to relate to the target. They're idealizing their persona to mirror the target. They do this by creating a false persona. Now, they fool the target into believing they're the perfect match as they mirror your interests and values. They pretend to have similar experiences and to be devoted to the same causes and build target trust by disarming the target's defenses. Then they isolate the target. The narcissist praises the target for the unique ability to understand them, implying that no one else can. If an outsider expresses concern, the narcissist frames it as they're envious or they're a threat to the special bond that the narcissist has with the target. They do this to reinforce the idea that just them and the target are a team and everybody else is an enemy. Now, this is an attempt to dismantle the external reality to foster a dependence on the narcissist for validation. They methodically and subtly dismantle the target support system. This creates an us against the world mentality as the target is increasingly isolated from a healthy support system. And then they start future faking. They keep the target invested and compliant by making elaborate promises for the future. Now, this manipulates the target into ignoring red flags. These grand long-term plans are used to manipulate the target into ignoring present-day red flags. It's an illusion of a destiny and perfect future. Here's one that's great. Playing the victim. They make up stories of past betrayals or traumas, portraying themselves as victims. On one hand, they make themselves seem vulnerable. On the other hand, they use this to warn the target, if you betray me, you will become just like them. This triggers both sympathy and sets up a false responsibility for the target. Now, the operational phase is where they execute operations by planning which of their various personas will have the greater influence on the target. It's almost like if you can imagine all these personas as costumes hanging in a closet, and they can just pick any one they want to depending upon what their PsyOps has told them they need to do. Then they start saying and doing whatever that costume, that fake persona requires. Their goal is to create and disseminate information to shift your beliefs, manipulate your behavior, and support the narcissist's fragile psyche. Now imagine a narcissist as a puppet master. In the operational phase, they're secretly tying you up in the strings that they use to manipulate you. Everything they learned in the strategic phase tells them when and how to connect these strings. You are totally oblivious of this insidious restriction because they're connoisseurs of hocus pocus. Change the focus. This includes attention hijacking, unreasonable lies, artificial consensus, emotional manipulation, and the echo chamber. Now let's go over those one at a time. They hijack your attention to gain strict focus. They want to keep you focused on them. And depending on the target, they may have to do something aggressively. One example is the almighty love bombing in romantic relationships. Then they tell these unreasonable lies. Now, the narcissist exploits cognitive dissonance as a distraction from what's really going on. The target is constantly distracted by rationalizing untruths instead of following their own intuition and observations. They garner artificial consensus by creating the illusion of widespread agreement with whatever lies they toss into the echo chamber. This tactic is designed to wear down an individual's resistance and normalize narcissistic manipulations. It's in this phase that they gather all their flying monkeys. I did a video on flying monkeys that I will link at the end of this one. Emotional manipulation. This is the hub of everything that the narcissist does to the target. They're going to hijack emotions like fear and joy and outrage by swinging the target's emotional state back and forth. They can bypass rational thought and condition the target to act in a certain way. The idea is that anytime we are emotionally triggered, emotionally hyped, we're not thinking rationally. Rational critical thought cannot exist in the same space with an emotional upheaval. And so they keep us in that state of emotional upheaval as a way to draw our attention away from what they're really doing. One of the most powerful ways they do this is through this echo chamber that they put you in. So they don't isolate you just to isolate you. They isolate you so that they can put you in an echo chamber of their propaganda. And every time they feed that echo chamber, you're hearing that message repeatedly coming back at you. They start this by putting you in this echo chamber. They tend to change your attitudes, your emotions, and your behaviors so that they support their narcissistic objectives. See, the message is designed to confuse and deceive or demoralize the target. It's a disinformation campaign to shut down critical thinking and capitalize on emotional wounds. Now we move into the tactical phase of PsyOps. Based on what was learned about the target in the operational phase, the narcissist begins a series of influence campaigns that will support their goals. These include controlled validation. It's the dangling the carrot in front of you and taking it away when you don't please them. You know, it's praise and affection that they use strategically to reward you when you do what they want you to do. But then they take that affection and attention away when you're not doing it or when they want to punish you for something. It's called intermittent reinforcement. It didn't alterate between. See, people with traumatic backgrounds, especially when you have a fear of rejection and some type of attachment dysfunction, this is what really sets up the breeding ground for this award punishment cycle that they do. It's on a psychological level. If you have a traumatic background, it's feeding into that original wound, and without you even knowing it, you start trying to get this approval or this affection from this narcissist, and they know how to manipulate you because you're starving for that. Then we get gaslighting. I don't have to tell y'all what gaslighting is. They're denying, minimizing, reframe the event so that you don't think that you're seeing things right, like you're crazy, or it's your fault, or if you wouldn't have this, then I wouldn't have that. And then we get into the controlling the narrative and triangulation. That's where flying monkeys come in, because what they do is they redirect others toward a controlled and predefined narrative that allows the narcissist to play the victim while setting the target up as the bad guy. And all of this is going on behind your back. It may be involving what you think are friends, and it may be involving family. Okay? So what they're doing is they're bringing a third party in, okay, to create that triangle and isolating you out. So it's like, it's just now where it was you and this narcissist against the world. Now it's the narcissist and that third party against you. Now, the reason I say this goes on behind your back is because you really don't know what conversations and manipulations are going on in the whole relationship with other people. They're not just focused on you. Now they got you at the target where they want you to be. So now they're scoping out family and friends that they can take advantage of in the situation to support their false narrative, to make you the victim. And that's why I talk about in the flying monkey video how important it is to clean up your social media and your social circles and how to do that. Because once the breakup comes, it's no holds bar. Then we get into the blame shifting and projection. They can't accept that they're at fault, so they accuse the target in order to redirect their negative emotion to self-hatred and shame. So in other words, this is how you can know what's behind those eyes. Whatever they saying you did, trust me, they did that. Whatever they accuse you of doing and feeling, trust me, they doing it and feeling it. So they blame shift, see. They're projecting their negativity onto you because then they don't have to deal with their crap. Then comes the shame and exposure threats. I broke up with some fool once, and all I got was threats and stuff behind it. No, he wrong. As two left shoes, I was done with it. And now this, now that, now this, and now that. Still ain't dealing with the whole conversation at hand. All right? And so if you go against them, they're going to threaten you based on the information they got during PsyOps, which they probably manipulated you into telling them what your weak spots are, etc. The bad thing is all of this weaponizes trust, weaponizes vulnerability, and weaponizes any private knowledge that they've gotten or coerced out of the target. The fear of losing this individual will keep you attached to that individual, and that's the whole idea of their whole PsyOps. So this is, I'm giving you 5 steps how to break free from a narcissistic manipulation. Number 1, establish trust in yourself. Trust your gut. Okay? Choose not to question yourself. You're going to have to make a choice not to question yourself when you're in a mirage of their projection. You're going to have to be able to stand strong enough to trust yourself. If you got an inkling some crap is wrong or some crap went down, trust you me, some crap is wrong and some crap went down. But if you start to listen to them, then you will begin to question yourself. So job 1 is to establish trust in yourself. When a situation feels off, don't question your own judgment. You're going to refuse to allow them to question your judgment. Period. You don't question your judgment. You don't allow them to question your judgment. This has got to be a non-negotiable boundary you draw with yourself, which brings us to step 2, which is to set boundaries and maintain realistic expectations. Some of us are falsely believing that if we set a boundary, that it means something to somebody else. Not. We have to always divert back to the fact that we cannot control what somebody else does. So you're going to set and communicate clear limits on unacceptable behavior, and you're going to expect them to be ignored. A narcissist is incapable of the empathy it takes to honor boundaries. They don't have it in them. So you have to make that boundary, communicate it clearly, and know that they're going to cross that line. More than just cross that line, they're going to see your boundaries as a personal affront. It's going to be a challenge to their control. Regardless of how reasonable the request, it's going to be a threat to them. You need to determine up front how you're going to respond when that boundary is breached. So what it boils down to is that these boundaries are for your protection and your well-being, not to change the narcissist. Change takes introspection and self-awareness, neither of which is the narcissist capable. So expecting that from them is like putting a 5-pound weight in a baby's lap and expecting them to pick it up. It ain't going to happen. Look, this is what you have to keep in mind when dealing with anybody, because what they do is really out of our control, and we can't force anybody to do anything. But what you need to evaluate and understand is the difference between willing or capable. Willingness and capability. A person can be willing to do something while also being incapable of that action. I'm willing, but I'm not able. Conversely, a person can be unwilling to do something of which they are fully capable. I ain't doing it. Either way, it's not going to happen, my friend. So be careful of making demands of people who are incapable or unwilling. You're setting yourself up for a constant disappointment otherwise because you had the wrong expectations. Also, let's talk about boundaries versus ultimatums. You got to know the difference between a boundary and an ultimatum. The basic difference is that boundaries focus on what you're willing to accept, and ultimatums are focused on controlling someone else's behavior. Boundaries establish personal safety, intimacy, and mutual respect in a relationship. Ultimatums are coercive by nature, and they're intended to issue a threat and demand change. Drawing boundaries keeps the focus where you have control, yourself. You can't control others no matter how many ultimatums you issue. While an ultimatum can force compliance is usually unsustainable unless the change comes from the inside out. So this is what I'm going to tell you about ultimatum. Don't issue ultimatums unless and until you're willing, prepared, and able to follow through when the narcissist doesn't honor it. Every time you fail to follow through on a breach boundary or a breached ultimatum, you weaken your already tenuous position in a relationship. So when you draw these boundaries, you need to also have a plan for what you're going to do, not if, but when the narcissist fails to step to that boundary. Oh, but he loved me. You know what? Okay. You're in a fairyland. If this is a narcissist, it ain't gonna happen. So don't cross your own boundaries and prepare for and protect yourself from the narcissistic rage to follow. Number 3, I go into more depth in the Flying Monkeys video on this. But you're going to have to, the whole relationship, the minute you realize that you're dealing with a narcissist, you've got to do what I call tribe reconnaissance. Tribe reconnaissance. You're going to reevaluate your friends and your family to determine who's strong enough to resist the narcissist's manipulations and threat. Not everybody is. And if they're not able to resist their threats, trust me, he's already scoped them out and planning on adding to his flying monkey army. So you need to determine who is and who ain't. At this point, you don't know who's been turned into a flying monkey and who's too weak to withstand the manipulation. You have to make sure who can be trusted and support during your initial separation from the narcissist, because that's when all heck breaks loose. Number 4, make a plan. Keep secret documentation of abusive events and the dates they occurred. You want to secure these records along with supporting evidence like screenshots and messages in a place that the narcissist has no access to. So that means you're not putting it on no cloud where he might access it. You're not giving it to somebody that might be turned into a flying monkey. You got to figure out where you can save these files because nobody should have access to them but you and the one person or two people that you trust with the information. So after conducting this trial reconnaissance, you're going to place a copy with that trusted individual. Don't place these on any shared drive, as I say, no social media or shared devices, okay? Now make a safety plan. Decide who you can call when you get into an emergency situation, what items you're going to take with you, have a bag packed, have a plan that includes children and pets if necessary. Now here's the kicker. Most of us are our own worst enemy because we don't know how to keep our mouths shut. We get mad and we blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no. You're not going to discuss these plans, your safety plans with anybody that can't be trusted to keep it private before, during, and in the aftermath of the breakup. Whoever you choose needs to go no contact with the narcissist, and they'll need to be aware that anyone around them might be a flying monkey recruit. Number 5, get into counseling with a therapist who's experienced in narcissistic abuse and trauma. Do this before you're so fed up you're ready to leave. You're going to need to have this available to you because, number 1, you need to identify why you were a target. Generally, the narcissist saw something in you that you may not be seeing. And you need to be able to develop a positive independence from this narcissist because generally your independence has been eroded. You've been isolated from your good support groups. And now we need to determine not only why you made such a good target, but also how you're going to deal with the damage that's been done in the relationship after you were a target. You're not going to tell anybody you're in these sessions. Nobody but you and your therapist know that you're going to take these sessions because you're going to need these to build you up for the exit. So get to counsel as soon as possible because it'll prepare you for breaking free from the narcissist. You're going to need that outside support to reestablish your independence. So in my opinion, narcissistic abuse is domestic violence, period, full stop. You don't have to take physical blows to be a victim of abuse, okay? Narcissistic abuse may or may not include taking physical blows, but it's definitely mentally and verbally abusive, which takes longer to heal than the physical wounds. I know you guys get tired of me saying it all the time, but I'm just telling you the truth. You really need to get into some kind of therapy so that you can see where trauma has dulled your senses, so to speak. And you need to be able to trust yourself again, and that's going to come through therapy. If any of you out here know of a family member going through this, mostly if you're going through this yourself, I really want to see you strong enough to stand on your own. Understand that your whole narcissistic experience has been designed to tear you down. Where there was any strength, it wants to destroy it. Where there was any independence, they want to destroy it. If there was any place where you trusted your gut and trusted yourself, they want to destroy that. Because you are too much in the truth of who you are for them to handle. So always remember that your greatest power is realizing the truth of who you are. I want you to know that truth.
Hey, if you like what you see here today, please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so that you know when we upload, and like and share the video. Thanks.